Lee Hackett. He is the Group CEO of Blueprint X, a global consultancy helping mid-market and enterprise businesses turn technological complexity into a competitive advantage. Lee, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, Joe. Good to be here.
Awesome. So I understand you are a pro footballer in your background. Tell us a little bit more about that and how it kind of transitioned into what you do now.
Look, it sounds a lot more glamorous than what it was. But yeah, when I left school, I went to play professional football and in the early and late teens. But it wasn't the Premier League and it wasn't as glamorous as the Premier League, but probably a good beginning for business though.
Awesome. So what daily habits from those sort of days of, being a footballer would you say have transitioned into what you do for business from the pitch to business, we say?
Yeah. So I think the big one, which is consistency, I think was, key. I've always been, even from before I played football, was about getting up early in the morning and starting the day early, kind of getting ahead of things. And I think in football, getting in early, getting warmed up, training, doing that on a daily basis and being consistent, trying to be consistent in everything that you do, trying to improve or get marginal gains. And I think resilience, I think sport at an early age builds resilience. And I think the adaptation of those things into business was a big help for me.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, tell us a little bit more about your business. And when it comes to AI, it's off-the-shelf AI is pretty much everywhere. What's the one quick win that mid-market CEOs should roll out this quarter?
Yeah. So as you said, Blueprint X, we're a kind of global consultancy, predominantly focus on AI strategy, AI and kind of digital transformation. Our strapline is kind of what's next. And so we focus a lot with our clients on helping them identify what's next for their business and how they can harness technology and AI to drive growth. We're in 3 regions. We're in North America, EMEA, and also in APAC. And a lot of our customers are some of the biggest global brands that everybody's heard of. And we really do focus on Adobe and Salesforce. They're our 2 major technology partners, but we also focus on the wider ecosystem. So there's a lot of technology that works with Adobe and Salesforce that we'll consult for clients on. But yeah, it's a great question. It's one that comes up all the time. What is the one thing? I think with AI, and we're doing this with our own business, and I think this is really important. Try and find what are the really painful things in the business that you can automate and use AI for. What's that really difficult thing that everybody hates, and can AI be put at that? And I'll give you a really good example. In our own business, proposals for clients are really, really important, and making sure that most, and this is the case in most industries, particularly in B2B, when you send out proposals to the client, does it really hit the mark? And is it really identified everything that they need and what their requirements are? And that's quite a painful process in a consultancy business like ours, because you have lots of people involved. But we're kind of using AI to look at those proposals and make sure that they reflect the customer's requirements. And where that might take 20 people to peer review, we're now using AI to do that. And I think, so when I'm talking to customers, when we talk to customers, we're talking about, can we find those things that really shift the needle, but are also quite painful?
What advice would you give to CEOs to cut the AI hype and look into the real return on investment with this stuff?
Yeah, look, I think the real, this is all about time saved and productivity, right? I think right now, and I think if you can adopt AI in your business, and I think hype is real, there's no doubt. I actually think that it's underhyped in the short term and maybe a bit overhyped in the long term. And I think for me, but identify those things that will really drive productivity. I think we talk about with clients, it's human in the loop. So kind of envisage in the future, I might be an employee and I might have 1,000 agents that help me do my job. And so how much productivity, how much efficiency can I get and effectiveness can I get from what I do? And tools like Salesforce, tools like Adobe, that's kind of really the direction of travel, is how can they really cut through the hype and provide real value add efficiency and effectiveness to employees.
So across mid-market firms, where's the biggest time sort of sink, and how can AI wipe that out?
Yeah, look, I think in mid-market, and as in most businesses, it's friction. So workflows often have a lot of people involved and will have a lot of kind of friction. And I think what AI has the potential to do is kind of find a lot of that out. So to make the kind of handoff from one workflow to another as seamless as possible and actually manage and automate some of that. So, and I think they're the things that I think in a mid-market level, really understanding data, or having your data in a good place as a business, having some really clear workflows that you can try and take the friction out of. So where it would be handed off from one person to another. I think these are the kind of things that don't sound particularly sexy when you think about AI. But actually, these are the things that can really shift the needle in a mid-market business.
No, that makes sense. So if companies are already running Adobe or Salesforce, how can teams plug AI into those stacks within a short time of days rather than months?
Yeah, so I think that this is where it gets really exciting. And I think from our partners and Adobe and Salesforce, we call it embedded AI. So I think there'll be various different strategies in the future of how businesses deploy AI, whether that's embedded AI using Adobe or Salesforce or other technology, whether that's developed in-house AI, dependent on the particular industry, or it's a mixture of both. And I think in a lot of cases it will be a mixture of both. Some of the for example, agents that are being built into Salesforce are phenomenal. If I'm in sales, where I can use an agent, whether this opportunity is likely to close or not, based on lots of different data points. I'm using Adobe, can use Adobe Gen AI to create and make sure that all of the content that I create within my business, let's say it's a bank, which can take a huge amount of time to make sure it's compliant with lots of rules and regulations. You can do that now in a matter of minutes, and something that may took weeks. So the embedded AI in both Adobe and Salesforce is so exciting for businesses. Our aim as a partner, one of our uniquenesses is how can we use both? We don't see Adobe and Salesforce as either or. We see it as both, and how you can use embedded AI in Salesforce to drive content into your Adobe AI engine and Gen AI is really exciting. So these are the kind of user cases, the kind of scenarios that we're talking to customers about right now.
Right. No, that's fantastic. And obviously with all of this technology moving so fast, a lot of big tech giants are axing jobs, and 61,000 jobs for AI pivots. So how can nimble sort of smaller firms turn this disruption into an opportunity for themselves?
Yeah, look, I think there's probably, if you're not a full stack AI business, and what I mean by that is if you're not building the business ground up from AI, which some people are, and that's super exciting. But I think it's all about speed, Joe. I think the AI is one way or the other is all about speed. Can you be first to market? Can you be first to harness and embed this technology? And I think that will allow a lot of smaller companies to compete with the bigger companies. And I think it's a sign of things to come in terms of big companies reducing headcount. Look, I think the other thing is these companies work 10 years out. So when they're talking about losing heads, that might be over the next 5 to 7 years. Smaller companies make more decisions in a kind of shorter time frame. So I think all of these things have to be factored in. But I think speed is the opportunity with AI. So whatever business it is, whatever size, that's the opportunity.
That's great. And speaking of speed, I mean, a deal flow might be slower, but what single tech move can turn a mid-market acquisition into a growth engine?
Yeah, great questions. Look, I think in M&A, which is obviously a part of our business in terms of how we drive more deal flow within our M&A engine, we're using AI now to just kind of speed up that evaluation of the type of businesses that we would look to acquire. So we can then also automate the outreach to those companies and really start to use data and AI to drive a lot of that interaction. When we get into the deal, in terms of our scorecards and how we kind of use the scorecards to kind of rank businesses before we look to acquire them. We're using AI there as well. So all of these things are just kind of driving more deals, moving deals through the pipeline a lot quicker.
That's great. So would you say like 12 months from now, which metric will prove a mid-market firm has outrun the giants with it?
Look, we use a term we've developed multiple KPIs internally, and which we call AI impact. But really, I think about a business in terms of it's an engine, it's a machine. every business has a kind of the way it works, and it normally has something that it sells and something that it delivers. So whether that's a manufacturing company who sell products and manufacture them and then deliver them to customers, or if it's our business where we sell services and then deliver those services. I think where you'll see a huge potential impact is in things like conversion rates in sales. So I think if you can deploy AI effectively in your sales organization, and you could see 10 to 15% increases in improvements in conversion rate, if you can get productivity and efficiency into how you deliver your product or service, that could improve margins by 10 to 15%. So for me, it's about hard metrics. Can you point AI at the hard metrics? Because I think with AI, Joe, belief is huge. So, if you can believe it, if you can see it, you can believe it. So by using those hard metrics and pointing AI at those hard metrics like sales, like delivery, like gross margin, I think that's, you're going to be really understanding, and you're going to really see whether you're winning or not.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, the expression as well, move fast and break things, is back. So should CEOs grab the AI market share while rivals are sort of debating the ethics side?
Look, there's huge amounts of ethics here, ethical issues that we're all going to have to navigate, I think, particularly with our customers. But as I mentioned earlier, I think speed is really, really important. And I think AI will give companies speed, but how businesses deploy AI also needs to be really quick. And I think in our business, we're small enough to be agile. We compete against some very big companies like Accenture or Deloitte and have huge respect for those organizations, but we're smaller, more agile. What we deliver for customers is really high value. So if we can also use AI to do that, then that's a tremendous opportunity. And I think that is the same for most organizations.
Certainly. Well, speaking of that, I mean, Microsoft is dropping 80 billion on AI this year. So that does really prove that size wins, or can speed still beat the spend?
Look, I think where they're spending that money is in the development of AI. I think in the large models and the computing power to do that. I think in most businesses like ours, most of our customers, they're just going to be consumers of those models. And so I think the spend for businesses like us is going to be adoption. Is going to be, how can we deploy AI into the business? And it isn't easy to do that. I think, I kind of talk internally in our own business and to customers about, you have to think differently. We have to be willing to think completely differently about how businesses adopt AI. This is a revolution. This is huge. So thinking differently, being curious, being agile, being completely open-minded to new ideas and new thinking, I think is necessary.
That's interesting stuff, definitely. And interestingly as well, big tech's facing lawsuits over the training data. So should CEOs feed their own training data into models now, or wait?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of kind of in the enterprise level systems like OpenAI, there's a lot of ability to configure those systems to protect data. I think some companies will develop their own models and have a version of the model that is completely isolated from the larger models. I think there'll be lots of variants of different things. But I think from a point of view of security, privacy is a huge issue. I think in AI, the two issues right now, constraints is security and privacy, and integration. They're the two major constraints for businesses in terms of using AI.
Okay. So Lee, if you could hand every CEO one AI superpower tomorrow, what would it be and why?
Look, I think adoption, right? I think if I could acquire one superpower now from, whether that be Superman flying through the air or Spider-Man going from building to building, if I was to take that analogy and apply it to AI, it would be, if I could flick a switch, it would be business adoption, because it is not going to be easy. It is not easy to do. And not everyone thinks it's a great idea. Everybody thinks that this is something that a business should use. There's lots of ethical issues. So I think the businesses that adopt and AI and manage to get it adopted, that superpower is going to allow them to win and win big.
Definitely. No, I totally agree. Well, Lee, this has been a fantastic conversation. You've offered huge value to our audience. Where do we find out more about you and Blueprint X?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. BlueprintX.com. You can find us there. As I said, we're a global business. We work with some of the biggest brands in the world. You can also find us on Instagram and LinkedIn, BlueprintX.com. But really appreciate it, Joe. It's been great chatting to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lee. And thanks very much, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time.